Hello guys and welcome to another CREY video guide. My name is Scuden and today we'll look at how to make a projectile using the lift. We'll actually also be using the seeker, so if you haven't already checked out that video, please check out my other video on the seeker, and it's going to make it a bit easier to understand what's going on later in this video. But first off, I've placed a lift here from the library, and before we start working with it, let's just double click this lift and just turn the power off. Because we want to make sure it's easier to build with here initially. I've enabled the snap grid and the rotate snap because I think that makes it a lot easier. First thing we want to do is we want to lift up the lift just to make it easier to work with, and then we're going to rotate it 90 degrees. Now let's just put the transition time to 1 second here. When we turn it on, as you can see, it reaches this. Let's just move this character. It reaches its final destination, which is the position on 2 here. But it just stops there. And when we remove the power, it goes back. But that's not really projectile-ish. So what we want to do is that we actually want to go into effect here. And then we want to... no, sorry, not effect. The cycle, sorry. And change it from once to repeat. So there's a ping pong as well. The ping pong basically does this. It bounces to the end and then back and then to the end and back again. Now, what the... oh, sorry, I keep... it's cycle, not effect. Alright, so if you choose repeat instead, if you power it on, as you can see here, it repeats the cycle every time. And as you can see already, it's more projectile-ish. Let's just double the distance here. And maybe actually just make it 6 here. And let's just freeze and reset. You can press 7 on the keyboard and 8 to do that. Alright, so let's glue something projectile-ish onto this. I don't know if you have any. Let's just take a fish here. Not that it makes a lot of sense, but let's just do it anyway. And now we're going to basically glue this fishbone to the lift. We're gonna unfreeze, and as you can see, we now have a fishbone projectile. So that's something. I'm actually thinking we should increase the range a little bit. Let's just double it. So that's a very basic projectile we have here. You can control the speed of the projectile with the transition time, make it slower or faster. We started on 1 second, kind of like that. You can always change the cycle as well if you want to make it smoother. Or if you want some elastic or tempo fall. This is kind of cool. Yeah, we can just use that. So let's just turn it off for a second, freeze and reset. Maybe just turn it on actually and then freeze and reset. Okay, so now we have this projectile. Of course, you want a projectile to deal damage. So go into gameplay props here, select this damage area, just decrease it. Just enough to cover the sort of tip of the fishbone. Yeah, I said it. Glue that onto the fishbone and just tweak the damage. Let's say we wanted to deal... 25 is probably pretty good. And now, as you can see, if we unfreeze, we have a projectile here. So what we're going to do now is we're going to go into test, and we're just going to try and get shot by this projectile. 1, 2... 3 and 4. Okay, so that worked. But this is not very fun because it's not moving, it's not doing anything. And this, ladies and gentlemen, is where the seeker comes into play. So again, if you haven't watched that video, check it out and it's gonna make it a lot easier. I will, however, try to explain what I'm doing. So if you don't want to watch that video, never mind, it's cool. I'll explain it here. So actually, this seeker, we don't want to use the seeker in a traditional sense, because we don't want it to move, we just want it to aim at the character. So what we're going to do is we're going to disable movement on X, Y, and Z axis. Just get in there and toggle them off. And now, what this seeker is going to do, it's actually only going to look at the character, because we have look at on still. With a certain turn speed, let's just bump that up to maybe 250. We can always change that if it's too quick. And then we're going to glue the lift onto the seeker. So now the seeker should actually try to look at the character at all time, and the rest of the setup will follow. but we'll still have the projectile functionality. So, as you can see, we're being shot at here, and it's just trying to look at us all the time. As you can see, it sort of went down into the ground, and this is actually because the look at is trying to look at us on the vertical axis. This is also something that we covered in the Seeker video, but you should just know that if you disable this, it will not be able to look at the vertical axis, which is this one. So it'll just remain on the horizontal axis, which is this one, and it'll try to shoot you. And this is what we're looking for right now. So as you can see, nothing goes into the ground. It's just this fishbone projectile trying to shoot us. And now what we could do, just to make it a bit more like visual appealing, I guess, we could take the skull here and just make it bigger. And we could even have two of these. Nah, let's just take one. Take the skull, glue that to the Seeker, which is aiming as well. Place that here. And let's see how that looks. So now we actually have this skull shooting fish bones at us. I don't know how you would use this, but I mean, you can just make your own turrets, or just figure out a way you can do this differently. Or you could just use the setup. You're very welcome. Now, what we could do just to add a little extra to this is that we could actually put a Seeker here. Let's just hide this, press H. And then glue this Seeker that's not moving onto a Seeker that's actually moving. Just H again. So this Seeker here that we just placed, it's actually going to seek towards the character in the regular way. And at the same time, this Seeker here is just going to look at the character with the projectile. So now we actually have this this enemy here that's trying to chase us down and shooting us with the fishbone projectile. And already have a bit of gameplay just around that. So guys, this was my take on how to use the lift as a projectile. There are probably a million of different ways you can do this. If you find out new ways to use it, please let me know in the comments. If I missed anything, let me know as well, and I'll try to cover that in a new video. But until then, I just want to thank you very much for tuning in and watching, and we'll see you all in the next video. Bye guys.